Thank you very much for your introduction. Hello, everybody. Like every Thursday, we have the chance to see each other, especially because yesterday here in Mexico we had an earthquake, but everything is fine here. So um, with all the things and everything still going, I'm really happy to be here and have the honor to present all of you the topic for today. It's going to be about, yes, currencies, how to handle those transactions, especially on the financial side, right? But anyway, I'm going to make some operations so you can see what's the idea of managing the currencies, because many of you, of course, have different type of operations for a type of different channels, web stores, brick and mortar stores, wholesaling. So, well, even now with the new technology, with Power Apps, we now can create our own applications and start selling anyway with different type of methodologies. With a mobile phone, we can create our own apps. I'm gonna have a session in the future to present you this technology where you can now create your own Android with your own ideas. Well, how to perform different activities. All right, so I'm just thinking out loud about this topic because I have been studying that part, which is super good. And well, at some point I'm going to start with that topic. For now, I'm going to be then starting with the session, and we're going to have maybe 1 hour, 50 minutes to cover the topic. And of course, this is a free session where you can ask anything, just for those of you who are then interested in this topic. It's quite simple at the end. The idea is just to take all of you step by step to the understanding of the process. So basically, if you want to know to start using foreign currencies in Business Central or Navision, follow along the webinar, and I'm going to explain how to create currencies and enter the exchange rates, understand the setups, the currencies manually or automatically. We can use exchange rate services, and we need to understand, in the other hand, the financial process that we might have. Also in the operation side, when you purchase, when you make sales operations. What often happens to once you have this process, we often see that our customers want to also make adjustments. And some of you, when you get to know the process on an intermediate level, of course, you would like to see your own reports in different currencies, right, for many areas. So that's what we're going to be doing, and you're going to get to understand the entire functionality now. Okay, so in order to begin, we're going to start with the what I consider the first topic that I always show when we have trainings, and is the setup of the currencies. The idea of setting up and having this more or less like an introduction actually is not exactly what I want to show. What I want to show is the functionality, right? But in order to understand it, well, as companies, of course, increasingly operate in more countries or regions or with different type of customers, it becomes important. You need to be able to trade and report financial results in more than one currency. So if you buy or sell other than your own local currency, you have receivables or payables as well in other currencies. What else? Record GL transactions. And then that's why we need to understand how do we set up this part, okay? So as an introduction, as a company, I have an international company with multi-currency functionality. And in order to actually start with that, I'm going to show the currency card and the currency exchange rates that we are going to then showing today for our introduction of the webinar. Okay, in order to do so, in Business Central, which I have currently now, here you have the client that I'm having here with some, well, I have presented the client many times that has different type of tiles and graphs, charts, and many other functionality that we have. So the first idea is that in order to start, I'm going to just look without having to go to any menus. I'm just going to directly type into our browser just the currency card for me to start and show the basic setup of my multi-currency option. So here I have all the currencies that I have set up in my company. So I'm going to start showing what we have and all the fields. So I'm going to start opening, I have Canadian dollars, euros, and Mexican peso. Okay, my company handles dollars as well as a local currency. And here I have a list of the currencies that I use. The same you will be having in NAV. You need to set up and start, to begin, you need to update your currencies and your exchange rates. In order to do so, you need to create a currency card with the following characteristics. This is just an example for my currency card. You would need to start from new, where you would update your currency code and the description of the currency. Okay, then we need to specify a specific symbol, right? And very important for us, we need to set up some accounts for unrealized gains and losses. This is because every time we make conversion and in different operations, we're going to have a wins and losses while we make and we do trade. So as well, we have some specific fields that say last modified, because at the end, we are actually working with according to your policies with a specific exchange rate that we might have. Okay, just to mention, these are the most important and mandatory fields. Remember, the description, your accounts for gains and losses, and at the end, we are going to start with the rounding differences. It depends as well. We normally work with 2 decimals, and we are going to round our invoices to the nearest decimal place. So it's according to what you need. In retail, especially, sometimes could have special setups, like try to round always from 0.5, for instance, to go up as an example. So the POS, just to mention, when it comes to rounding, has you have your own policies, okay? But for, in a general way, we could say that we always work with the nearest and with only 2 decimal places, just to make it easy. And as well, we might have, if you need to report your own financial operations, we might need some reporting accounts where we would make some specific transaction for residual gains and residual losses. So in some cases, these accounts are going to help just for those of you who want to set up your reports in order to make your your balance sheet or your P&L available in other currencies. You're going to need these residual gains and losses accounts. Let's going to explain this. On the financial side, we are going to need that our currency have these specific 2 accounts for gains and losses, because every operation that we do have a gain or a loss according to the specific currency exchange rate, and of course for the payments. But for the reporting purposes as well, you might need to have some residual GL accounts for specific operations. Once you also close and start preparing your reports, well, you still have, and you may have some differences. Why? Because your accountants at the end or previous the closing part or the closing operation, you might require some time adjustments. Okay, so in order to explain this this part, we're gonna actually show this how it works, and just these are just the basic fields that you need to understand where we work. Okay, but in order to really get into your operation when you create your actual currency, you are going to need a specify sometimes some tolerances, right? Because so you might have some residual differences. Okay, it's not a problem. You might adjust if needed. Just you can create a payment tolerance. Okay, this is just an option. Okay, the percentage that a payment or refund can vary from the amount on a credit memo or an invoice. Okay, this is just optional. Okay, so if you want to have it, you can still do so. And as well, for us, we can use the exchange rates. Our exchange rates is going to be how do we apply against our local currency for a specific rate, the value of this specific currency, in this case, Canadian dollar, and what would be the exchange rate or the relational value for a specific, in this case, for $100, how much my actual currency would cost, okay? So we might have a relationship, normally in this case, because the CAD, the value of the CAD is less than the actual US dollar. That's why it's 66.656. And you could still, if you want to really be really precise with your decimals, specifically for those large amounts, well, you could decide instead of just inputting the actual value of your currency, multiply it by one specific exchange rate amount, which would be then used to be able for us, for the on the financial side, to accommodate more than two regular or standard decimals. In this case, you can see that we are placing 4 decimals. That's why we, if needed, we can adjust this value, in this case 100, but the actual normal value would be for $1, American would be then 6.66 Canadian dollars. Just as an example, okay? So we could adjust according to the amount of, to the specific decimal places that you want to use. Okay, just as an example of, for you to take the idea of what we need. The features, the description, the accounts for gains and losses. Then you could make adjustments only when you desire, okay? And well, of course, then we are gonna go in depth now with the exchange rates, because this is just quite easy. And of course, we are going to help you with further requirements if you want to work with in different countries, with different stores. If you receive in the POS or here in your sales orders, don't worry. But the first idea is that we need your currencies to be here, and in order to actually work in the actual process in the financial side. Once we have all our different currencies, it depends now, we're going to need a specific date for the exchange rate to start working. What this is, well, since at least the first transaction we have in the system, well, in this case, I have placed this since 2017, just as an example, but this could be updated according to your requirement, okay? Let's try to take a look at this. In order to work with exchange rates, we are going to actually look another function, and I'm going to show the currency exchange rate tables and functionality. Rates. Okay. Oh, I was looking at another topic. Maybe I should just go back. Okay. In order to present that, I'm going to first give you the option to not update everything manually. We have the currency exchange rate services in Business Central. Let me show you what it is. You could, for your currencies, once you actually upload the currencies that you use, we could set up a specific provider that is going to help us to actually update everything automatically. We can give you some ideas of different providers in internet that we can use in order to, in this case, the Europe Central Bank. Well, because remember that in this case, well, according to your, let's say, location in your different countries, we might be using different services. Maybe that geographically it would be quite near your area. Okay, but the idea is that we can just enable a service that is going to help you to update the exchange rate for a specific period. In this case, that we can help you to update just for you to know, to have, this is also for an AV, we can set up what we call a job. Okay, also, well, retail people might be quite related to the job functionality, but for those of you who yet who are actually learning, we have an automated service that is going to help us to actually do things for us internally in our system. Okay, in this case, we have a specific table when we are going to store records for our different exchange rates for different dates. Now, what this service is going to be doing is that I could, for instance, run my updating service for the exchange rate on different days. Like in this case, you can see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. And you can set up a specific starting a day and time. So you can actually start configuring that to automate the actual update of your exchange rates. So just to mention it, okay? This is not important at this point, just to review how it works technically speaking, but take that idea if you need it, because at the end, we don't want all the time our accountants to always work on the exchange rate process. I mean, updating it manually, because yes, you need to actually review, and we are going to review how the exchange rate is working, but with the service that is going to help us automating everything, the process will be then let's say more real. And that's what we want at the end. We don't want, or at least from my accounting point of view, we don't always want just one exchange rate for an entire month. Why? Because that wouldn't be reflecting specifically your actual gains and losses. And more, this is very important if you are actually have stores with thousands of transactions, okay? So I always recommend to use this service. Now, coming back, let me just talk about a little bit the final part of the introduction, which is the actual configuration of your currencies and exchange rates. Okay, I'm gonna go back to my currency, Canadian dollar, that we just reviewed before, and I'm just going to actually update the exchange rate. And I'm going to explain once again our setups. Okay, whenever we want to actually work with this, in this case, a starting date, it's necessary. And for the currency code, Canadian dollar, I have explained that we can just specify the actual currency exchange rate. And if you want to use a multiplier to let the system use more than 2 decimals, well, in this case, just use 10 or 100 or even 1000, okay? But just to take that idea, if you have further doubts, we are going to help you with that. Every time we update a new record, then we would need to specify the date, let's say today. And then we are going to have to do exactly the same operation for the new record. And we would then have to update, let's say that we have a variation on this specific date, and we have an increase in our value. Okay, the idea is that on every specific date where you want to update this, we are going to have this record. This is never deleted, because at any point we could use any exchange rate of every specific date on this table. So the idea is if you actually want to use one exchange rate every week or every day or every month, well, we have all these records, because our accountants have the possibility to use any exchange rate of any specific date according to the document and the document date we are going to use. So that's why we are actually having, and we might have many, many records in this case, okay? So the idea of setting up all the services is that, and the different dates for different exchange rates, is because according to your necessities, we can help you to actually work with foreign currency balances, normal balances, GL account, H accounts receivable, H accounts payable, and of course, well, the trial balance. This means that if you have not even closed your actual figures for specific periods, well, we would use a trial balance report. I'm going to leave this for the end because I want to also show the how do we report in different currencies. Okay, so for me, whenever I actually want to run the process and start working with this, let me just show. Okay, I'm going to use at the end, I'm going to update at the end with the actual service. What I'm going to do is just post some transactions manually for you to see the GL process behind and the calculations we have behind what we do manually first. At the end, what I'm going to do is, let's say that my controller specifies that the Canadian dollar should change at the end, even he has already closed even a period, or he has already posted many transactions. And I'm going to show you at the end of the webinar that we can update all that. And then we are going to then work with the actual update of many transactions for a specific period that we can still update even if we have run all our operations and all of our reports and our closing process, blah, 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 and then update the actual currencies. So in order to begin, you need to understand that the processes might vary when we work with currencies because we have different type of customers, vendors, and banks. Just for you to know, make notes on the following. Currencies and the way we calculate are actually configured and based upon this specific currency, I mean specific vendor, specific customer, and bank account, I mean. Okay, so let's try to then review one of our customers. I'm opening the customer list. And for me, what I'm going to do is just open the customer card and actually just configure any of my customers with the actual currency that is desired. Okay, so whenever you create a customer, you will need to input just the specific mandatory fields. Let me use, okay. This is a new customer. As you can see, currently I have not posted any sales operation, but here we will have the sales, the cost, the profit, and the profit percentage. Okay, and then by those calculations, it's very important to use one specific a currency code, which is actually related when we configure your customers to one specific a legal entity or even region in Atlanta. Well, actually, this is a demo that is in the United States. So I would be then only using the USA dollars or American dollars. But for my presentation and not just for the demo, I'm just going to change the currency. But we have every vendor, every customer, and every bank has this specific field, the currency code. The currency code then in the customer card page, you need to enter the correct currency for the customer, or leave it blank to indicate that this is going to be local currency. Okay, the same happens with the vendors and the same happens with the bank accounts. Just to mention it, it's very important to configure this because many transactions will be then vary. And I'm going to then explain you, because this might be sometimes confusing for the people who's going to actually start to review a new system or review how this actually operates. Okay, I'm going to show also now one bank account that currently, this is my savings account, the bank account card. And now what I have here is that I could actually update my bank account with any of my currencies, but in this case, I'm going to leave it blank. What happened here? Okay, I would like to understand how do we use currencies. Okay, we need to understand, okay, every bank has its own bank account has its own currency and it's not, you cannot change it. Okay, the same happens with your vendors, the same happens with your customers. So what is going to happen? Well, my customer or my vendor might pay me in one currency, but in my bank account, I have another currency. How do we work with it? Okay, let's then begin with that. First of all, now you understand that every bank, every customer, and every vendor has the, what I'm showing here, has the currency code field. Leave it blank if it's local currency, or specify the actual currency that you want to use for that specific vendor, customer, or bank. Excuse me, I haven't. Okay. So with this, we are going to start then making the actual questions, how everything works when I have all the related operations. Okay, so once we understand that we have currencies, we are updating different exchange rates, and every customer, vendor, and bank has their own currency. We are going to then start with the actual process. Okay, how do we then begin? What we're going to do first is process a purchase order. Okay, your purchasers, they do not understand most of the time about the configurations for GL or anything. They just see a purchase order and the currency. Let's see how it works. I'm going to open now a purchase order. A purchase order document, of course, is going to have the actual vendor information. Let me first review which vendor I have with a foreign currency. Otherwise, I'm going to set up one with any currency, just for us to show the calculations. Okay, I have different vendors here. Okay, this is a list of vendors. Here's the name, Fabricam, First of Consultants, and here just the general information in this very short list. Okay, most importantly, I have the balance that I have for every of my vendors. And here I have the currency code field. A majority of them, of course, will be blank because it's local currency, but some of them might have a different currency, okay? So set up your vendor, and this means that I should, when I purchase for using this vendor, I should use Canadian dollars, okay? Now, I just want to tell you before we begin that your actual balance sheet and accounting process will be in local currency. But then how do we then do that? To begin, we need to create a purchase order where we are going to see the calculations that are going to explain everything for me. Okay, so in order to review what is going to happen is that I'm going to create a purchase order with my vendor that has the currency, excuse me, Canadian dollar. Okay. Wild word importers. Okay, very easy. This is a purchase order document. Here I'm going to have the request for any item or any a service, or you want to pay maybe for freight, insurances. But in this case, the idea is that every purchase order is going to have the general information from your vendor, and most importantly for our session, the actual currency. This was set up previously in the vendor card. So what am I going to do now is just start ordering in the line section one item that is called, in this case is a laptop, and you need to specify as well your warehouse. You might be thinking, okay, maybe my warehouse is not even in my particular country, or I have different stores with different currencies. Okay, it doesn't matter. You always are going to pay to the same vendor, and you need to review the currency, the actual currency of the vendor, and that's how everything is going to be calculated. Okay, according to the vendor, I'm going to be paying here $6,000, 760 Canadian dollars. Okay, well, how do we know how do we then calculate and review the entire information? Okay, for me, most importantly, is that what I'm going to be using now with this document is that I'm going to be paying everything in Canadian dollars, okay? So the invoice will be generated as well in Canadian dollars, but if your financial AP process wants to actually use local currency to pay or make conversions, or okay, we are going to review further then in a second step that process. Okay, but for me, the idea is to understand first of all the actual first input of the entire transaction. So here I have the statistic window in every document, like a sales order, a purchase order, and every journal. I'm going to open the statistics window, where in the statistic window, I can see the actual amount that is in the actual currency that the vendor requires, because this is going to actually create an invoice in the actual currency that the vendor uses. But anyway, my purchase is going to always have the actual value in the actual currency that I need. Okay, so this actually different amount, which is $4,500, is because the ERP is just converting the amount into local currency, okay? So very easy to understand. As well, if you have prepayments, it's going to happen exactly the same. We will need a prepayment amount, but the idea is that we have converted the value that we can see in the purchase order to the posting value that we are going to be using after we post this, and will be the difference. The local currency value will be 405,000. Okay, in this case, we don't have taxes, but this could be as well another type of operation that we calculate. In this case, it's just zero. Okay, but now that we are just checking this process, I'm going to just close the statistics. And let me see if here I can see. Okay, once I have all this information, I'm just going to post my invoice. Let me see. I have in this company a plural workflow. I'm going to change from company, I believe, in order to avoid changing. Okay, Kronos USA. I'm going to do just exactly the same operation and review after I have posted my purchase order. This is going to create a purchase invoice with exactly the same values for local and foreign currency that I have actually just used. Okay, let me see if this has USD dollars. Very well. Press up consultants. Let me see if I have a new White Word importers. They have currency USD dollars. Oops. Okay. Let me see if this is gonna be better for me to present the information. Vendors. No, all of them are local currency. What could I do? I might need to go back. Better. Okay. I need to go to the Kronos that is international just to complete the demonstration. Excuse me for the delay. It's just that I just wanted to review further details that to assure that I have different ledger entries in different currencies for the same operation and without the actual workflow that was triggered before. So let me review. Posted purchase. Posted purchase invoices. Okay. With this, I believe I can explain remaining amount. Yes, I believe this is going to help me. Okay, what I'm doing is opening a purchase invoice that was already posted, actually quite similar with the values we saw before. So this is going to help me. Okay, the idea with the actual posted purchase invoice is that you have a specific cost that in this case is in Canadian dollars, okay? And as well, if you want to review statistics for any document, you are going to review the values that we're going to have in the actual vendor currency and the local currency, like I mentioned before. But we have further reviews when we have this, especially because we are going to use many different accounts. We need to update the vendor and we need to see how everything is actually behind the scene working. Let me just review if I have here. Here is a navigation. I'm going to review now the detail of all my entries, because if I take a look at my GL entry when I posted a purchase, we're talking, remember, about cost. Okay, so the cost of my materials and then accounts payable. Well, and if necessary, you might also have inventory accounts posted. But for me, what I want to show is that I have here the additional currency amount and the actual local currency. So every posting transaction, every transaction that you do that is touching your GL is going to be actually using both currencies, okay? But this is just additional currency amount. And here, this is in Canadian dollars, this is 6,000, but the actual amount was actually converted into local currency when I posted into my GL account. Don't forget this very simple explanation, because every transaction is going to do exactly the same. Okay, once again, I'm having a cost, accounts payable, and inventory transaction that actually we are going to actually post in local currency. But here, if you want to see the actual information, is also here. Now, what is going to happen outside my GL? Well, we have information for the vendor ledger entry, how the actual subledger, or not the subledger, I don't want to use only the accounting process, how the actual invoice and the vendor value or the vendor statement or the report or AP, in other words, is going to review the balances. Well, here I have the original amount is 6,000, and the local currency as well will be on the vendor ledger entries. Why this is quite also as well is important to understand, because when we pay, we might actually receive either the currency, we need to pay in the currency of the vendor, or as well in local currency. I'm going to show you how we do that. But as well, guess what? If your bank has another currency, well, we're going to run into issues there that I want to explain. But hopefully you are understanding here the first explanation. In our GL accounts, we have local currency, but here in my vendor information, or the transaction that is going to be posted for the vendor balance, is going to be in the actual currency for the vendor. Okay, so very simple explanation. I'm just actually looking at the information that will be posted from the actual posted purchase invoice. Once we understand how actually everything works behind the scene, let me see the detailed vendor ledger entries. If this is going to give you more, no, it's just exactly the same. Okay, we understand then how everything is posted. So the balances of your vendor will be always in the currency that he needs, but on the financial process we are about to see, we still can do whatever we need with the currency, and everything will be, of course, calculated. I just need to first show you the vendor balance. So here I'm just going to show the vendor card. Nothing complicated, just opening the vendor card, and here the balance due still need to be paid, right? Meaning that this invoice, this value is being generated by some specific invoices, okay? That, of course, I forgot to mention, very important. The value that is being suggested in because of, for this field, the currency code, in every document is still a suggestion, and you can still change for purchases, sales operation, and financial journals. Let's see how then everything was recorded in the vendor after many transactions. Okay, this vendor currently have different invoices that I still need to pay. In red, you can see those overdue invoices. This is an internal policy in my company that after one specific period, and if they are overdue, mark them in red. Okay, so all this list of different invoices have external document corresponding to the vendor invoice number for AP relations when we pay and when we select which invoices to pay. And then later we have original amounts in the specific local currency. But guess what? One of the operations is here in another currency. So hopefully you get the idea. With the vendor, even though we have one currency configured, we are still posting transactions in different currencies. The same happens for your customers. If you need, we are going to clarify that we can have different transactions in different currencies. Don't worry, because we still can either adjust different exchange rates, but it's flexible, the process. The only one that is not going to be flexible is the bank account, okay? So here, take a look. The payment method will be bank, so we need to pay attention of this in this area, all right? But for your once again, vendor ledger entries could be in any currency desired. The actual currency we are actually setting up is just a suggestion, okay? So that's the idea of every transaction we do. That's why I'm showing the actual balance that is due here, showing that everything will be then calculated with different currencies, and it needs to be reviewed in detail to understand which transactions we are posting in different currencies, okay? So, very good. The same happens for the customers, don't forget that part, okay? So, when we post a sales or purchase invoice, this could be anyway suggested, and we can still change it. The currency that was selected, well, first of all, was suggested because I configure it in the vendor or in the customer, but I still can change it in my invoices before posting it, okay? So that's the idea. Your vendor ledger entries in foreign currencies can be then applicable and can be used in the vendor ledger entry, but in the GL account will be then used in the company currency, okay? So that's the general idea. After you understand, set up the currencies, set up your exchange rates. If you want, we can automate your services for automation for the exchange rates updating. And then we are going to set up our catalogs for the customers, the vendors, the banks. And you have seen how then I have posted a transaction, but in my vendor and as well as the customer is going to happen the same, we can use many currencies as needed. So what is going to happen after we understand that part? Okay, we need still to process some payments, okay? And in order to do so, because I have actually begin with the purchasing side, but it's exactly the same in the sales operation, okay? First of all, we need to understand the rules that apply when you assign a bank account in multiple currencies. When we pay, okay? Enter a foreign currency payment, adjust the exchange rate for a journal if needed, and analyze the exchange rate differences when they apply. Okay, so we're going to start by processing a payment, a regular payment that we're going to do. And for that, we're going to actually do the following first. If you want to actually do this multi-currency environment, okay, you need to do one setup. that I just want to explain because it will be an internal policy that you might be using or no. The purchase payable setup and sales and receivable setup have one specific, let me see where it is. An application so you can use different currencies. Let me see where it is. Oh, I forgot all this. Oh, exact place. Ah, here it is. Excuse me for that. I haven't covered this topic in a while, but the application between currencies, what this means. Okay, this is very important. You could apply and you could use, and you can set up that your documents only use one single type of currency. That will be suggested by your bank, by your vendor, or by your customer, and only that one. In this case, the application between currencies would be set to none in this setup for the purchase and payable setup. So then, what is going to happen here? You can establish a policy that only the currency of the vendor is used. But if you want to show, like I did, that my vendor or all my vendors can use all the currencies as desired, we are going to set up my system for the all option, meaning that the application between currencies, at least in my purchase and payables, would be then using all type of currencies. So decide according to your requirements what would be then used in this case in order to actually work with this. Okay, so that's the idea. Once we understand the specific setup and then we work with this specific information, we are going to then process a payment. Okay, for that to happen, I'm just going to open a payment journal. Hopefully, if you have questions, because I don't want to, before continuing, there might be some questions. This might be sometimes, for some people, quite tricky to understand, but believe me, this is very, very direct when you understand the basics, like I have explained. And at the end, you just decide if you want to actually set up your policies to use all the currencies for your operations or one single currency to avoid confusion internally. Okay, so the payment journal. I'm just going to open now a normal payment journal where I'm just going to actually use for my transaction. The payment journal is going to help me to generate checks, payments, bring my invoices in order, and for the user, the accountant processor, to select which specific invoices you want to actually pay. And according to that, well, select the actual currency that you want to use. Okay, then how do we actually process this part? Okay, let me just start explaining this line. For the posting information, you need to apply one specific date, then specify what you're generating, in this case, a payment, and a document number. Then you need to specify what you are going to use. This is a payment journal. We have different journals, by the way, I forgot to mention, but this is the standard one, okay? We have deposits, we have other type of transfers between banks and other type of operations, all where multi-currency also is being used. Okay, so 1 second, please. Okay, and here I'm going to include my vendor account. This is very important because here you are going to select, and if I actually work with any vendor, what the journal is going to do is going to bring for us the actual currency for that vendor. Okay, but then later, this is just as a reference because you can still anyway change here the actual currency that you would like to use. And very important, we are going to, before doing anything, we're going to specify the amount here. Let's say that this is $1,000. Euros in this case, excuse me. Okay, So if I use a euro currency for my, because remember that I set up my company to use any currency whenever I want, well, this is going to actually convert, and by using the actual exchange rate for that last period when I use it, well, convert my amount to the specific calculation with using the exchange rate to convert to the local currency, okay? So what I wanted to explain here with the actual process of the payment journal is because sometimes you will need to use your bank account and in order to actually pay your vendors. With this, you would need to actually select the bank account, offsetting account, to offset in the same line if you want it, right? In the same line, we are selecting the vendor. And then to offset that vendor, you need to specify which bank account you want to use. I have two bank accounts in my demo, the checking and the savings account. Okay, so here, every bank, of course, as well, might have this specific currency, okay? In this case, my savings account has the blank, the currency code for this bank account is blank, meaning that this bank is using the actual local currency, okay? So as you can see, I have different positions here. On one side, and most importantly, my bank account only accept local currency, right? Or if desire, another one. But this is mandatory for your banks, okay? So you cannot, to your bank, provide any type of currency. If you go and create a bank, an actual bank account, you need to actually sometimes operate in only one type of currency. And if you want another currency, you need to create another bank account, okay? This is not system specific, but this is actually coming for the real operation with any bank, okay? That's why we have the policy that your bank will be only using one type of currency. And if I take a look at the actual balances, you are going to only checking that the amount is only in one currency and we don't have the relational value for another type of currency. So hopefully that explains why our bank only use one type of currency, and then everything will be then converted and posted into the bank account in using the value that I have here, okay? Now, why am I explaining this? Because the vendor uses euros, or at least in this journal, I selected euros, or let me change even CAD. Let me change once again so you can see another conversion. All right, so if I'm making a complicated operation only for one line because I'm specifying here that I have different type of conversions for the same amount that I'm specifying. So according to the currency that you select in your journal, but the amount that you're going to be posting into your bank will be always the currency for that is specified in the bank, okay? So because my bank has local currency, is not using this 1,000 Canadian dollars that I'm specifying here, but the actual converted amount for $665. And that will be the value that I will be checking in my bank account. Hopefully that's making the things easier. That's why I'm having all these values and working with different currencies as well. And that's why I have set up my company to use any relation for all the transactions for purchase and AP. The same happens, okay, this is the way actually we are going to be able to actually post my transaction. The only thing that I would need to do now is actually, well, you can post, preview posting, what else? We have my, let me see, where's my report? Oh, as well, prepare your checks, okay? Very important, because if you are printing checks, this will be using the actual currency for that your bank has, okay? So try to understand that part, that's important. Otherwise, if you want to use another currency, everything will be based on your bank account and as well for the checks. So that's very important to understand in first place. Okay, in order to actually analyze the result of my actual payment for this part, let me see if I review the actual posting of this operation. I'm just going to now preview posting it. Okay, I'm going to just review the GL entries. Just to remember, this is using not the 1,000 Canadian dollars, but the local currency, okay, on one side. Then the vendor ledger entry. The vendor ledger entry is using 1,000 because here we are actually using Canadian dollars, okay? So the currency we are providing and the money we are actually providing is Canadian dollars in this case. Even though my bank, it has another currency, and excuse me if I'm explaining this complex example, it's preferable to always use one currency for everything, but in the real world, that doesn't happen all the time, okay? So at the end, we might have a gains and losses at the end, okay? Now, the bank account ledger entry as well is using the currency for the bank, or in this case, local currency, okay? And behind all of this, you might have differences when they apply. Let me see if I can see it in the tail vendor ledger entry. Okay, once we receive an invoice and once we actually work with the actual application of the payment, sometimes you have you're going to receive this payment after a specific time, well, maybe 1 month or even with one single day. The actual relational exchange currency and the actual amount that we calculate might be quite different. So today, 1,000 Canadian dollar is equivalent to 665.6 currency in my local currency. But tomorrow, my exchange rate is going to change, and this could be a little bit higher or lower. So the actual currency that will be converted in the actual Canadian dollars converted to local currency tomorrow might be quite different. In other words, when I purchase and then later when I receive a payment would be quite different, okay? The actual relational exchange rate. So if that happens, we might have in our GL entries more accounts that only the accounts payable and the saving account coming from my bank. We might have gain and losses then processes, okay, that will be posted automatically calculated because the exchange rate just actually changed in the future. Then we might have, because I'm doing it right now in my demo, I have no differences, but if I actually do so later in the future, of course, then I'm going to have gains and losses coming from the actual currency update in the future. Hopefully, and if you have doubts, we can show the actual process of the calculation and see how the actual amount is going to be changing, okay? But just take the idea. If the exchange rate changes, the actual amount that will be used by my journals or my purchase orders will be then having a different relation and the amount will be, of course, changing. Okay, so hopefully this is, well, that's why I'm using this complex but very instructional example, okay? With that, well, once I'm sure about what I'm doing, and actually just don't forget that this is only a suggestion. This is calculating using the exchange rate calculated and registered by in the financial previous configurations I showed, but here you could still, I don't know, still change and maybe doing another rounding and, well, edit the journal, okay? That's the only idea behind all of this. Once this is done, well, you just post your journal with all these currencies and calculations, and everybody is going to get the exact currency we use. Our accounting, our bank, our vendor, and, well, if we have differences as well for gains and losses, we are as well going to see that information. Okay, so that's the idea of the actual process we do. But let me see if I can go to a previous process when I have differences. Okay, what I'm gonna do is going to alter the actual currency exchange rate directly by myself, okay? This is not gonna happen all the time for one transaction only, okay? This is most of the time done at the end, or this could be updated by your services. So let me just explain you. You see how everything is inputted, okay? But in the reality, in the real world, the exchange rate is all the time changing, okay? So the exchange rate, let me see where the process is. Update. Update exchange rates. What I'm gonna do is just run one specific exchange rate process, and this can update according to the actual value of the Central European Bank is going to update my currencies with all these decimals in this case. Well, you could still, well, I have just run behind the scene the process to adjust my currencies for the value on a specific date, but you could still, if desired, you could still adjust, because what happened here is that, okay, I have altered my exchange rate, okay? And my purchases, my sales operations, and everything is going to be affected, okay? Let's say that, I don't know, I'm going to change the exchange rate, maybe also manually, just for you to see it, that we can just do so, not only with the service I have explained, but with the actual exchange rate done manually. Okay, 66 point, let's say that for any reason the market changed in one day and we have 2 decimals increase of the actual exchange rate value for two ticks, the way the traders call this. Okay, 2 ticks or 2 decimals, we change the actual value. And then what is going to happen? Okay, do I desire to actually increase by these 2 ticks the actual value of my transactions, or this value will be, let's take a look at this. I change the value on this specific date, okay? What do you want to do with this, okay? Do you want to start working with this new exchange rate in the future, or do you desire to change your actual transaction using the Canadian dollar? All the transactions posted maybe for this month. Do you want to actually convert using this new exchange rate that we are updating? Or do you want to make adjustments on that side? This is also a possibility. And in order to do so, we are going to just run the actual process to change my transactions. Change rate. Let me see if this is going to help me. No, this is not what I want to update. Okay. One second, let me open one of my transactions for me. Okay. What am I going to do now is also show you a very important setup to update all the transactions that I was explaining, only if desired, because normally when we update an exchange rate is because we are going to start using that exchange rate in the future, all right? But my option to work now in this is quite advanced for the accountants that sometimes require this. We might have to actually update many transactions to be using the exchange rate desired, but we need to update transactions that were already posted. Okay, in order to do so, I have the general ledger set up. And for me, I'm going to update and use that I want to also work with the Canadian dollar to make reports as well, okay? So remember, I have my local currency, but if I want, I could specify that I want to post many transactions to be updated with the actual exchange rate that I have updated. So what I'm gonna do is actually run that job. Okay, we have that option. And as well, in one single process, I'm going to update not only my transactions, but my actual reports for me to give me the possibility to view my financial reports in another currency other than the actual company's currency that I have. So we have the chance to do so. That's what I'm gonna do. And this is updating my taxes, my GL entries, and every related transaction with the actual new exchange rate that I have actually updated. And this is posted transactions for me, okay, for a specific desired date as well, maybe for a day, for a week, or for a month. And this is exactly a possibility that you might have if desired for the accountants, updating all the GL entries for a specific date that will be including a new exchange rate, and as well updating all the reports that you want to see, but in this case that you want and you need to actually analyze in different currencies your actual financial reports. Sometimes that is very useful, specifically because we don't want to actually back and forth and work in Excel and do everything, all right? This is going to also update. As you can see, I have the item. Well, this is already finished, but this is going to be also updating my inventory transactions done in another currency. So let's take a look at these meshes. If you change the additional reporting currency, future general ledger entries are posted in the new reported currency, okay? So I have updated the system with my, in one side, my new exchange rate that I want to use for a specific period, but as well, because in this webinar, the idea is to understand the full functionality, I have also in one single step, do two different processes. Update some transactions with a new exchange rate, and now I'm going to also show my reports in more than one currency, because this will be desired by the accountant if necessary. Okay, so what we can do just is to, let me see, let me just run the process again, because one of my calculations was not finished. Retained earnings. Okay. Okay. After this initial explanation, let me see. This is blocking. This is being blocked. Maybe I have some setups that are not allowing me to post in previous months. Let me just verify what's going on here, just to show you the reports in additional currencies. It's updating my GL entries, and then it's going to update my item entries. So hopefully you can see in these messages what is being done. So currently updating GL entries. Let's see. Okay, while this is updating, what this is going to be doing. Yes. Okay. I have added a reporting process that also will be including Canadian dollars, or my report will be only in Canadian dollars. So I have now two possibilities: view my financial reports in local currency, and as well I have this job has added a setup for me to just show the reports in another type of currency. What type of reports you can see? Of course, your chart of accounts, your P&L, your balance sheet, and other type of reports that are going to then include any additional reporting process. Okay, let me just show one example that has that. Let me open the chart of accounts. Okay. And just to finalize my explanation about the currencies with this simple but giving you the entire functionality, I'm going to now open a trial balance, okay? So we have dozens of standard reports that will be do just this specific setup, okay? I'm going to open the trial balance, and here we have just one single setup. Use additional reporting currency when it's desired, okay? So all accounts with balances, with activities, okay. Every time we try to print a report, we can do the following. We can send it to email, we can print it directly, or we can just preview it. Okay, for now, I'm just going to preview it. In first place, my report for the simplest report that I have is that I'm going to have the summary trial balance. I don't want to, at this point, check complicated reports because I'm focusing on the values and the exchange rate. Okay, I have only my accounts with the beginning balance and the ending balance that I have here. Okay, so here we have the debit and the credit. Okay, this is the report where that I can use to depict the actual information. But for now, let's review on my checking account, this and my savings account. This is the bank account. These are the bank accounts. And I can see the value 113 and minus $16, okay? $16,000. And the ending balance here, okay? So the idea is that, well, you might export to Excel, or you might use this in BI, or we have made plenty of different possibilities when it comes to reporting, okay? But all of them will be using the following criteria once we have set up the information in the ERP to convert your currencies to your values to any currency desired. Okay, because I have set up Canadian dollars. If I print the trial balance again, but using the use additional reporting currency, if I just preview this document again, and of course, your date filter. So from May to June, to the last day of June, if I have transactions, well, I just want to preview that report, the same exact report with the same exact layout. But in this case, the values will be quite different. Even the bank accounts that we say that they have only one currency, okay, well, in the reporting side, the values could still change. And the magic is here. The amounts are in Canadian dollar. This message in the top, let me just maximize this a little bit, make a little zoom. The same report that I'm showing here is giving me the following message. The amounts are in Canadian dollar. So this is what we mean when we can actually preview our reports, financial reports. Don't forget, only for financial reports, any actual currency that you want. And what I have done here, I changed the exchange rate before for all the transactions for June. Okay, so I use only one exchange rate when it's desired, okay? You still can adjust it for transactions that are in the past. That's the idea that I would bring here. But it's not all the time necessary because you might have different exchange rate values for different dates or weeks or specific periods according to your company policies. And at the end, you could still use that information to print your reports in different currencies. In this case, what we call the reporting currency. Your GL account will be only containing local currency amounts, but your reports, if desired, could be yet still could be printed using another type of currency, okay? Another currency with the specific exchange rate, or with one for the period, or with different exchange rate for different dates, but summarizing the value anyway into the desired currency. So this is the last part of our webinar today, explaining the functionality, explaining everything we desire here. And we can still make actually adjustments only for the reporting currency. That will be a further process. Maybe you desire to only for the reporting currency change the exchange rate. And yes, we have just as to finalize the webinar, we still can enable the possibility to adjust not only the real value in our accounting, but only adjusting in the reporting side, okay? So that will be the only process that we have. So I want to just show the last function where you would be adjusting just exchange rates. Okay, whenever you desire to adjust one exchange rate, okay, maybe I just want to do it for today. And here, you would need to adjust the actual exchange rate in your currency card, and then for any date desired here, specify a starting and an ending date, and here the posting date, well, for today, right? And the idea here is here, okay, the main idea is here, adjust the customer, vendor, and bank accounts as well, okay? If you are actually looking for adjusting the actual real transactions for one specific date or a specific range of dates or period, specify the starting and ending date, change the actual currency exchange rate, and voila, you can do it and click on OK, and this will be adjusting your values for the desired dates. Or maybe you just want not only the customer and vendor bank, but also you would like to maybe just affect the actual GL accounts for only reporting processes for the exchange rates for foreign currencies. And then only your additional currency reports will be affected with this actual process, okay? So just to have the idea, at the end we can adjust any value if it's real or if it's only for your reports. You can affect your exchange rates for one day or for an entire month. So you could decide that the exchange rate that you desire would be updating your transactions for even the entire ERP if desired. At any point, any given time, for any transaction, you could update the value of the actual currency operations or exchange rate operations, okay? So basically that's it. Hopefully you can get the main idea. If you need more actual insights into what currencies or how currencies works, let me know. Or if you have a question so far about what we have seen, just let me know so I can answer any. If this was a little bit confusing, sometimes it is, yes. Sometimes these actual processes will review transaction by transaction with purchase, with general journals, and then with sales operations, or in your POS as well, we can just review it. It's just that I don't have time to review all of that. I'm sticking to the actual core, which is exchange rates, functionality, and reporting, okay? But the actual operation might differ according to your sales channel. So if I don't have further questions, thank you very much for your time. Hopefully this was clarifying many of the functions when it comes to currencies and processes. So thank you very much and have a great day.